and we'll have plenty more Lefties Losing at content with my next guest. And let's start with the Republican vice presidential candidate, JD Vance, doing the media's job for them and approaching Air Force Two to demand Kamala Harris answer some questions for a change. Meanwhile, his Democrat counterpart, Tim Walz, repeated a disgusting and verifiable lie that the left has been pushing about JD Vance. They claim that he wrote in his book, Hillbilly Elegy, that he had sex with a couch. Of course, that is untrue, but it hasn't stopped Governor Walz from referencing that lie.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there?
See what I did there, he asks, proud of himself. My gosh. Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Why would he push such an ugly and trashy and obvious lie? And if a Republican did that, I would say the media would come down on them like a ton of bricks, but there's been really not much response to that.
None, just part of the media cover, as we will see and continue to see in this election. I don't think he's going to repeat it because it didn't land. That would be my guess. I don't think we're going to hear that one again from him. But it goes to the bigger point of their strategy. So in any campaign, it's always about likability of the candidates and capability of the candidates. And you kind of have to hit them at both. And we're just seeing it's really, really clear in this campaign, both Kamala Harris and now Tim Walz are just going for the likability thing, and they're trying to frame Trump and Vance as weird or whatever other words they're going to come up with, and they're not going after the record or the policy prescriptions because that's where they're weak. And I think the challenge for the other side is going to be to counter that likability attack vector, but also go back to focusing on the record because there's a lot of fodder there. On the first one, I think that first clip you played from JD Vance was what the kids call a boss move, where he went there and forced, criticized the media and criticized Kamala all rolled into one in that 30-second clip that has gone viral.
It shocks me that she still hasn't done an interview. She's not going to cop hard questions. She can select the interviewer. She knows they're going to just be asking her about what a amazing candidate she is and how she's going to unite the country and, talk about being the first black woman, Indian woman to be running for president. So she knows the questions are going to be pretty soft.
And still won't do it.
And she still won't do it. She will not leave the prepared statements, the auto cue.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And I guess it goes to that maybe it's on some level, it is a lack of confidence. And even with the very trusty media that, as you say, will give her softball questions, she just doesn't want to take any risk of piercing the veil of that likability that she's riding high on now for all those reasons. And since she came into this position with only 100 days left, or now 90 days left to go, there is a strategy that says she'll run out the clock and avoid it altogether, which is very frustrating.
You can have a honeymoon that lasts that long, and I think she's counting on that. Now, this is far more serious for the Democrats than lies about couches. The issue of stolen valour has been raised in relation to Tim Walz. Questions are swirling around his military record. The Minnesota National Guard is disputing his military biography, saying he did not hold the rank of Command Sergeant Major at the time of his retirement, which came very conveniently, Kosha, just before he was due to be deployed to Iraq. This is an issue people care about. If you are willing to lie or over-egg something like this, it says something about your character.
It's huge. This actually is potentially a massive landmine. In the U.S., probably the most revered institution is the military, and especially if you served in an active combat zone, which for the last 20 to 30 years, there have been many. And it's just something that you don't do, sort of embellishing, taking more credit that you were in harm's way in the line of fire, literally, is something it violates every code in there. And it's just, again, such a revered institution that people, even who didn't serve in the military, don't take kindly to it. He did serve in the National Guard for 24 years, so that's good. That is an honorable record. He should stick with that. But there is video footage coming out of where he's used words that claim that he was actually in Afghanistan and the line of fire, and that will not age well. However, it is also important to remember for the other side that he is at the bottom of the ticket. So there is, I think, a limitation to how much that'll damage the whole thing. And they, again, need to just not get distracted with this too much and keep their eyes trained on top of the ticket and all of Kamala's many vulnerabilities.
Well, this is an issue that is going to come up in the debates, I think, the vice presidential debates in particular, because we know J.D. Vance did serve. He was boots on the ground in the battlefield, and yet former Speaker Nancy Pelosi questioned whether he'd been in combat.
J.D. Vance has criticised him as never having been in combat. And,
has he?
And,
has he?
Well,
has J.D. Vance been in combat?
Well, I think he was over in Iraq, I think.
Oh, goodness me. I can't believe some of the things she said during this interview. It's always about projection with the left. And Nancy also has revealed that Joe Biden is not speaking with her since she encouraged him to step down from the 2024 race.
Have you spoken to President Biden since he dropped out?
No, I have not.
Do you hope to?
Yes, I hope to.
Yeah.
We're all busy.
Is everything okay with your relationship?
You'd have to ask him, but I hope so.
I think we know why she made those absurd calls for him to be added to Mount Rushmore, like Biden up there with Jefferson and Washington. She played a not insignificant part in this quiet coup that has installed Kamala Harris.
Yes, she was quite icy there. I think I call it the coup sandwich, where up until the point where it was obvious that something had to be done because he was cratering, Biden was cratering with the Democrat base. She always was playing nice and was being supportive of him outwardly whenever asked. There are many clips about that. Then the moment came, and you're right, she is reportedly one of the key figures in the mutiny that the party staged against him. And then she's closing the sandwich with Mount Rushmore and very effusive things, and I think that's all part of the strategy. She knows exactly what she's doing. On the first piece, I mean, she stumped Andrea Mitchell there about the service with J.D. Vance. What she's doing and others are doing is they're trying to segregate between paratroopers, soldiers, artillerymen who actually are carrying weapons and fighting opposition versus those who are in other roles like doctors, lawyers, communication specialists, which is what J.D. Vance was. So she's trying to draw that distinction. But the point is he was in the battlefield and any bomb could be dropped on any base at any time for people, regardless of what role you're in. Versus Tim Walz
he was in the war zone.
He was in the war zone.
He was in peril along with his fellow soldiers. He was a Marine, wasn't he? He was and again, you have to be pretty elite to be among the ranks of the Marines. Now, the Democrats have been pushing this line, particularly about J.D. Vance, but also Republicans in general, calling them weird. This weird line has really taken hold. And the Trump campaign has used that very word to attack Harris's vice presidential pick, Tim Walz. Let's have a look at the ad.
What could be weirder than signing a bill into law that requires schools to stock tampons in boys' bathrooms? Or weirder than signing legislation allowing minors to receive sex change operations? Try electing the man who signed those bills, Vice President of the United States. Enter Chief Weirdo Tim Walz. As governor of Minnesota, Walz supported legislation that endangers minors, hurts women, and puts radical ideology ahead of common sense. Now Kamala wants Walz to enforce those laws on a national scale. Tim Walz, too weird, too radical.
Too weird, too radical, Chief Weirdo. They've taken that word and run with it. And I know you said Walz is Veep, so it's really Kamala's got to be their focus of the Republicans' campaign. But the fact that she has picked this radically left running mate, given her record is very left-leaning, the most left-leaning senator, I think it was judged in 2019, that says something. And some of the things he has backed, like putting sanitary products in boys' bathrooms in schools, fourth graders, giving access to really quite irreversible treatments for very young people who think they're in the wrong body. Also giving driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. I mean, that has got to hurt the Democrats coming up into the election.
The two places where the VP pick does matter is one is exactly what you said. It's a reflection of the thinking and judgment of the top of the ticket. So it is sort of a mirror back to Kamala, who made that decision for various reasons, reportedly. And then the other cardinal rule they say with the VP is whoever you pick, the upside historically doesn't show that they necessarily help carry a particular state or a geography, but the downside does. So it has to be someone who does no harm to your ticket.
Yeah.
There's a lot there, to your point, where his positions on record, because he's a sitting governor and he was a sitting congressman before that, are very much to the left of the center of gravity of the country. It really is. And so that is going to come out, all that stuff that they're playing, and the weird word, I guess, they're just, doing turnabout.
But the media, again, is trying to rebrand him as some sort of safe, centrist, no-risk choice. I just played a clip of MSNBC, CNN, ABC, all of them parroting this line that no, this is a safe pick. It's not a radical lefty at all. Now, we spoke yesterday about Walz's staunch support for the Black Lives Matter movement that saw much of Minneapolis descend into chaos as protesters ran riot. And he never really backed away from that. Here he is in 2021 suggesting no remorse for the riots that he encouraged and sticking up for the protesters, for the rioters, saying they should be listened to.
And those people on the streets, many of whom were arrested for speaking a fundamental truth, that we must change or we will be right back here again. Communities need to be heard. They're frustrated, not just out on the streets and say, why are you doing that? Because they're not being heard. They're demanding that these changes be made. They told us last year, change cash bail, change how you do traffic stops. It didn't happen, and look what we got.
Let's play some footage of what they did to his city, to his state. Let's have a look at Minneapolis after the BLM, mostly peaceful riots, protests. That he can't condemn that he says they should be listened to, and it's our fault for not listening last year. I think that tells you precisely where he stands.
I think it's going to come back to haunt him, and by extension her, in the ticket, because the mood of the country is very different and it's changed. It is much more pro-law and order right now. This isn't going to age well.
No, not at all. Kosha Gator, thank you so much for your time tonight.